All right, hello and welcome to another Why Would You Use? So today we are going to be talking about the Kuva Bramma. And this weapon has been getting a lot of talk lately since its release because it has self-damage. And everyone hates self-damage. And a lot of us are wondering, why the fuck is there self-damage in Warframe? So, instead of retreading that conversation, besides talking about that this weapon can for some reason not equip Cautious Shot, I'm instead going to use this video to talk about why I think if there was not self-damage on this weapon, it would actually be competing for best primary weapon because it is just really effective. What I mean by that is it explodes and it has a considerable radius on those explosions and they do a lot of damage. This weapon uses the hyper generic "this is a critical primary" build, which you guys have probably seen a million times by now. But just to go over it, uses hunter munitions because we use viral and because this weapon's fire rate is slow, and it has enough status to proc viral, and then slash procs from the crits are going to help us destroy armor, while this will essentially just double our damage most of the time. The only other thing of note besides that is not a mod that just automatically gets included in this build is Vigilante Supplies. This weapon is not going to need this hard line, but it does make it really convenient, and it technically adds a little bit of potential damage because you are combining for the Vigilante set bonus to get that up to a 10% chance to enhance your critical hits, which is not a big deal at all, but it does technically exist. So let's show this weapon off. The thing about this weapon is, as long as you're careful, it is so effective. It wipes out huge groups of enemies. This weapon by itself, without even this full build, I was doing it without hunter munitions, can just completely solo ESO, which to me is pretty impressive. A weapon completely by itself soloing ESO is pretty nice because it does it very easily as long as your Warframe is just able to survive. And that has merit. Being able to take whatever into the mission to level stuff and just be like, I have a bow, is great. This weapon is extremely good for leveling your Warframes in SO because you can still be highly effective and have large amounts of AoE damage while you're re-leveling a Warframe. And that can also allow you to not have to get close to enemies with a melee weapon to achieve kind of the same thing, which is great. Like, just plain and simple, it's an effective weapon. Like, its time investment per enemy, as it were, is extremely low. It charges super fast, fired off, group of enemies are dead. As long as you're in the safe zone, the efficiency conversation about this weapon in its effectiveness on enemies is great for it. Like, so much so that, like, the time you have to invest in actually killing the enemies is low enough that I can do this level 100 test, and I can just stay safe. Obviously, this is kind of a special environment where I have the opportunity to avoid enemies in a way I don't usually by being above them and around them because this is an open air environment. But there are a number of Warframes that are functionally invincible, so this just shows off like how little you have to really be, like, honestly, like, paying attention to where you're firing this weapon. Like, that part just isn't very important, and that's kind of the important part, is that you don't have to worry about that. And you can see, like, against these, like, level 100 heavy gunners, which my damage types are bad against, it still chunks them just because of the slash procs. Like, I didn't need to fire again there. They would have died from the slash, but you can just speed it up by firing again. Like, to me, that's impressive. And this weapon's really fun. I think the sound team fucking knocked it out of the park once again. Like, the explosions sound great. The way the arrows, noise rather, whenever they fly, really good. Like, I really enjoy this weapon despite it having self-damage. Will I use this weapon a great deal? Probably not, simply because of self-damage and how inconvenient it is for me. But if for whatever reason DE at some point decides that, hey, self-damage, that was a mistake, this weapon will be really great and will probably be very desirable and see a lot of play. But yeah, that is the Kuva Bramma. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video, and I will see you later to talk about another Kuva weapon.